Hello student, now let's start from question number 4. You have seen weather reports on television and newspapers. How do you think we are able to predict the weather? So the answer is the meteorological department. Meteorological department means who look after the weather and give the report accordingly. So that comes under to the meteorological department. So the meteorological department of a government that collects the data on the elements of weather such as a maximum and the minimum temperatures and maximum and minimum humidity, then the rainfall, wind speed, etc. They are able to study this element by using a different kind of instrument, and they measure the maximum and the minimum humidity, then the rainfall, speed of the wind, etc. For the temperature also they are using an instrument that called the thermometer, and by that they can measure the maximum and the minimum temperature of the day. And for the rainfall is measured by the instrument known as a rain gauge, and for the wind there is a use one device that called the anemometers, and there are also some of the other instrument which can measure the different factors which affect on the weather like a humidity, etc. So the question is here that you have seen weather report on the television and in newspaper. So how do you think we are able to predict the weather? So the answer is the meteorological department of the government who collects the data of all the elements of the weather like maximum and the minimum temperature, maximum and minimum humidity, then the rainfall, the speed of the wind, etc. And according to that, they measure this all the factor by the various instrument and then give the report. So for that they are able to there is some various instrument by which they can able to study this all the elements, and during the daytime whatever the readings came like a maximum and the minimum, they note it down and then they are shared to the television or news. So the answer is the meteorological department of a government collects the data on the elements of weather such as a maximum and the minimum temperature, maximum and the minimum humidity, rainfall, wind speed, etc. And they are able to study these elements using various instruments. The maximum and the minimum temperature of the day is measured by the thermometer. Thermo means related to temperature, and one instrument is there who measure the temperature that we call the thermometer. And for the maximum and the minimum wind speed of the wind, that is measured by the anemometers. And for the rainfall, that in that particular village this much rain is this inch rain is came, so that measured by the instrument that calls the rain gauge, which measure the amount of the rainfall. And there is also some of the various instrument which can be used for the measure humidity and other extra element which depend on the weather. So according to that they declare, and means according to that they collect the data and declare on the news and the television. So if I ask that you have to see weather report on a television and in newspaper, how do you think we are able to predict the weather? Then the answer is the meteorological department of a government collects all the data of the element of weather such as a maximum and the minimum temperature, the maximum and the minimum humidity, rainfall, wind speed, etc. and they are able to study this element using a various instrument. The maximum and the minimum temperature of a day is measured by the thermometer and known as a maximum and minimum, that thermometer. And the rainfall is measured by an instrument called the rain gauge, and the wind speed is measured by the anemometers. There are various instruments also to measure the humidity. Here the short type of question also asks that for the measurement of the maximum and the minimum temperature, which device you can use. So the answer is thermometer. Same like for the rainfall, then the instrument used, that is rain gauge. And for the wind speed, we can use the anemometers. So that kind of short question also may ask from this answer. Now let's move further. The page number 202, the question number 5. Write a note on how forest influence the quality of our air and soil and the water resources. Here we have to write down how the forest is affect on the air, soil and water resources about that. So the forest is influence the quality of our air, soil, water resources in various way. So that ways we have to mention in this answer. So we can write down that forest balance the percentage of the carbon dioxide and the oxygen in the atmosphere. As we know that during the photosynthesis, the plants take all the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and give back oxygen. And during the respiration, it takes the oxygen and release the carbon dioxide. So the increasing amount of the carbon dioxide is caused by the human activities, is balanced by the larger intake of carbon dioxide by the plants during the process called the photosynthesis, and simultaneously a large amount of the oxygen is released. Due to that, the balancing of the oxygen and the carbon dioxide level in the atmosphere will maintain. The second that we can consider that forests prevent the soil erosion. As we discussed in a previous question answer, that the roots of the plants is bind the soil tightly in a way that the surface of the soil cannot be eroded away by the wind, water, etc. The third thing that the forests help the replenishment of water resources during the process called the transpiration. As we see in water cycle that the transpiration is also play a very important role in to carry out the water cycle. A huge amount of water vapor which is goes into the air, and then it is cooled down by the process called the condensation, and then it's formed the cloud, and this cloud causes the rainfall and that recharge the water body. So the maintenance of the water body also the forest help. So if asked question that write a note on how forests influence the quality of our air, soil and the water resources. So in the first point you can write down about the air, means as we know that the in the air the carbon dioxide and the oxygen which is play a major and vital role, and in that the forest which is a very important part, because during the photosynthesis all the plants take the oxygen from the take the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere during the photosynthesis and give back to oxygen. So for the balancing of the oxygen and the carbon dioxide, forest is necessary. The second things that we can write down about the soil erosion, that as we know that the forest can prevent the soil erosion. How? Because the root of the plants which is penetrate into the soil and it tightly bind the soil particles along with the root. So we can say that it is help to prevent the erosion of the soil. And the third things which is related to the water cycle, how forests play a crucial role in a water cycle. In that we can write down that forests help in the replenishment of water resources during the process called the transpiration. Transpiration means the loss of water from the plants. It's known as a transpiration. So by the process called the transpiration, the huge amount of the water vapor which is goes into the air, and then it is condensed, means the cool down, and then it is again come back to the soil. So it is also plays a very important role for the maintaining of the water cycle. So we can write down the answer that forests influence the quality of air, soil, and the water resources in a various way. Some of them are the first one, that the forests balance the percentage of a carbon dioxide and the oxygen in the atmosphere, and increase the amount of a carbon dioxide which caused by human activities and is balanced by a larger intake of a carbon dioxide by the plants during the process called photosynthesis, and simultaneously a large amount of oxygen is released from the plant. So we can say that there is a balancing of oxygen and carbon dioxide will maintain. The forest, second thing, that the forest prevent the soil erosion. Roots of plants bind the soil tightly in a way that the surface of soil cannot be eroded away by the wind and water, etc. The third thing, that the forests help in the replenishment of water resources. During the process of transpiration, a huge amount of water vapor goes into the air and the condensed and form the cloud. And this cloud causes a rainfall that recharge the water body. And it also helps to maintain the water cycle. Now let's see the next question. 6 number question. We know that many human activities lead to increase the level of pollution of air, water bodies and the soil. Do you think that the isolating this activity to specific and limited area would help in reducing pollution? So in this question we have to write down about the human activities which cause the pollution, which cause the air pollution, water pollution and the soil pollution. So that activities we have to write down, and which kind of activities we can do and we can implement, so we can reduce the pollution, that we have to write down in this question. So as we know that yes, the isolating human activities to specific area would help to reducing the level of pollution. For example, the setting of the industry in an isolated region will control the pollution to the extent, and the pollution caused by this industry will not contaminate the water resources, agricultural land and fertile land, etc. Along with that, you can also write down according to your own way. We can also write down that government should be make some policy and some of the rules and regulation about the you can say that the existence of the waste material which is generated in the industries. They have to purify first and then after they can release. Such kind of act they have to maintain. And another thing, that wherever we can reduce the use of the vehicles, we can, and we can use the cycle. So also we minimize the air pollution, and also we can save the fuel as well. And ultimate, you can write down another thing like use of the natural source, and you can say that non renewable sources like sun energy, then the wind energy, which cause the minimum pollution. So the question is that we know that many human activities lead to increase the level of pollution of the air, water bodies and the soil. Do you think that the isolating this activity to specific and limited area would help in reducing pollution? Yes, if we are isolate them, definitely it reduce the pollution. So the isolating human activities to specific areas would help to reduce the level of pollution. For example, the setting up the industry in an isolated region will control the pollution to the some extent, and the pollution caused by the industry will not contaminate the water resources, agricultural land and the fertile land. So here your chapter is finished. Chapter number 14 is finished. In next video we will see the next chapter, and I hope you all are understand this chapter well. And if you have any doubt regarding this chapter, you can ask in Google Meet and write down this exercise question answer in your fair notebook. Thank you. Till then, be safe and stay at your home. Bye bye.